Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mana on the Rocks. It is I, your ever bald host, Joe. Joining me, as always, your ever not so bald host, Atlas.
Hello, everybody.
This week, we're just kind of chilling. We got to use this bar theme for something. We're just sitting down. We're just having a drink. We're just shooting the shit. We're having a laugh. Not really much of a topic. We just kind of wanted to chit chat. But I know we got more chit chatting to do over here at the announcements. Atlas, what do the people got to know this week?
Okay, people. So the big one coming up this very Saturday, 2 days after this episode airs, is the Fall Brawl by Cedh up in Issaquah, Washington. We're going to be there. A bunch of our people are going to be there, and there are still little less than 30 slots available for sign up before we hit player caps. So go ahead and register right now if you haven't yet. You're going to want to be there.
I want that place filled.
Yeah, I want to see as many opponents as possible. You're going to want to be there. There's going to be a lot of really skilled players showing up. The prize pool is really good. The entry fee is pretty attainable. It's going to be 100% proxies, so no weaseling out of playing your best decks either. So we're going to be doing that this Saturday, and then it's going to be taking a little bit of a break until the start of November when Gabby's Olympic Cards and Comics is holding their next quarterly comp event, the OCCS 4. It is going to be on November 4th. That's going to be a 10 proxy limit. So go ahead and register for that as well. Once again, good prize pool, attainable entry fee. And if you ever have any questions about making budget substitutions or something like that, go ahead and throw it into our Discord channel.
Absolutely.
So go ahead and join that if you haven't yet. The link will be below in our description. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you with that. And then 2 weeks later, still touting this one, we have a lot of space left to sign up if you haven't yet, is the regional championships for the Pacific Northwest area in competitive commander held by PDX, which is the Portland Commander Group. This is going to be in Graham, Washington on November 18th and 19th. A 2-day event, 100-player cap. Go ahead and get your tickets now because you're going to want to be part of the first one of this series that I'm sure will be coming back again next year and years after that. So go ahead and sign up. We'll be there. You'll be there, right? And then get to play some sick Commander games at the highest of levels.
Absolutely. One last shout out for the Discord and the Patreon. Appreciate all of you. Shout out to the lucky patron Dylan. Appreciate you. This one goes out to you. You should come on down. Get a drink with us. I really want Apparition because I don't have an answer to the One Ring, and it is an answer to the One Ring.
Yes, it's very much an answer to the One Ring.
That is basically the only reason. It's also a good removal spell, but it cleans up my One Ring situation, which is the only card that I have issues with. I can answer and deal with everything else, but it's literally just I'm gonna Bowmaster you to death if you have One Ring or we die.
Yeah, I heard about some interesting tech. Somebody mentioned it. I forget where I saw it the other day, but somebody mentioned some interesting tech against the One Ring being Shadow Spear because it removes indestructible.
Let me read this card real quick.
It's an equipment from Theros.
I'm familiar with it enough because I know it's a Urza Saga target.
For hammer time and stuff.
Yeah.
It's 1 mana equipment, equips for something. But it also has the
trample lifelink, 1 permanents your opponent's control, lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Equips for 2.
Yeah, it's interesting tech.
It's not
interesting tech. It's cool. I think it was in a white-black deck, so I don't have a ton of answers or options.
But I also like that you can just you don't need it to equip. You can just use it.
Yeah, you just put it in play, and it's just a permanent that has that effect, and you can randomly slap it onto something. And it's also legendary, which is kind of neat. So it triggers Yoshimaru or whatever for your Timney Yoshi deck.
She also wasn't super sold on Springleaf Drum. It was the other random rock. Because I have Springleaf Drum dropped for Mox Diamond, and I'm maintaining Mox Amber, which I think is correct. I like Springleaf Drum.
You have a 2-mana commander. I think it's probably pretty correct.
Yeah. No, those are mostly her thoughts, and I agree with some of them. Others, I'm like, no. She's like, are we really good? She's like, Elishorn, that card never leaves the list, and she's like, okay. No. This card never leaves.
Really?
It stays in, damn it.
I kind of doesn't it's a great card, but does it push your advantage enough? Because I feel like the deck kind of wants to go faster.
It wants to go faster, but if I untap with it, I win. That's how I feel like it stops certain. It stops Thoracle. It's just another answer for Thoracle. It stops other ETB value-y decks like green. It stops green really hard. on like more fringe matchups. But I have a decent amount of ETBs or like things that trigger on ETB that I'm like, it's good.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's probably true. I mean, it's definitely nothing to sneeze at. Is a nuts card.
I think it pushes my advantage enough.
That's okay. That's fair.
It also means that if my doxic count is 2, I can still win with a meal.
That's true, which is notable. Sometimes that does just happen. I've really been liking Oko a lot lately, and Manglehorn has come in clutch. Those are the changes that I've made to my list recently. Those cards have been kind of nuts.
I'm so afraid of Oko. I'm so afraid of Oko. Repeatable removal is so good against me. It's nuts.
Yeah, against your deck specifically. I think so. The thing about Oko is like I used to hate the card a lot. I've probably I might have mentioned it once or twice before, but I feel like the card was just like it's Simic Vindicate, which is fine. Like Vindicate's not a bad card by any stretch. It's just not really the optimal cost for effect that you're looking for in Commander. And so I was kind of meh on the whole card. And then the fact that it's just going to get punched instead of people who are playing Ad Nauseam getting punched made me go kind of like, why would I want to play this card? But
yeah.
I don't know. I tried testing it after talking with somebody a couple weeks ago, and every time I've cast it, it's been fine. I turned 2'd at one game, and it just sat around for the whole game and just carried me through. Just made a clue or a food first go round, turned that into an elk to defend Oko, and then after that, just like playing more and more and more blockers, and he just never gets hit. So I don't know. It seems okay. You just have to be like kind of careful with like what you target, I guess. Just be political about it. But that's been my experience. But the card's been really, really, really strong. It also answers like all of my least favorite cards to see against me. It answers Elvish Norn, it answers Cursed Totem, it answers Torpor Orb, answers all of those types of effects.
Answers Grapdiggers, answers Ring.
That's true too. It does just delete text from the One Ring, which is kind of wild.
So I like Oko. I've always liked Oko, but I think Oko is specifically like you need a specific meta for it.
Yeah.
Versus like just jamming it, because I tried it in Calamax and I was like, oh, this card's pretty sweet. And like I think it has like really good application, but you need the game to be at like a certain pace.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Because if you're just casting it as Vindicate, it's just not good amazing. Enough. Yeah,
it's not good enough.
Like we were saying, Vindicate's not really where you want to be cost to effect. But if you cast it and it's 2 Vindicates over the course of 2 turns, or like
now we're talking.
another Gilded Drake trigger or something like that, now like that card just got all of a sudden really valuable.
Yeah, it swaps control. It's just Gilded Drake. It's insane.
Yeah, it's cool. It's literally the ability is just the text of Gilded Drake. The controller exchange effects are affected by like removal and everything the same way. So it's just a Gilded Drake effect.
Yeah, no, One Ring and Oko are a special kind of fucked up in Magic. they just are. They are some of the most pushed cards that like on first glance, I read Oko when it first came out. I'm like, oh yeah, this card seems pretty good. And then I heard about the damage, and then I started playing it, and I started seeing it against it. I'm like, oh, I understand why this card is banned in literally every format now. It's insane.
It's kind of wild.
Like, it's the same thing with One Ring. I'm like, yo, that's cool. Like, you get to draw some cards and protection for everything. Like, that's okay. That's pretty cool. And then I saw it played against me. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, I can't hate you. Whatever. Oh, this combo is shut off. I can't kill you now. Oh, you're untapping, taking 1 damage, and you have divinate. You beat divination. You've drawn 3 cards. Oh, it's you turn 1 it. You've seen 20 cards on turn 4. That's insane.
Yeah, the card is truly wild.
It's just absolutely bonkers cards. I don't know. I
heard a rumor
like
that
cards, but
I do too. But I heard a rumor that about the One Ring, that when it was run past a bunch of like content creators and like they like test boards and stuff, I guess the card was 5 mana, didn't have indestructible, and it was effectively just like a mana rocket. Like tapped for like 1 or 2 mana, and it drew you a card when it tapped.
Okay.
Yeah, and then everyone's like, okay, yeah, this card seems fine. It's okay. It'll be playable in like draft and maybe standard or whatever. And then Wizards was like, thank you for your input, and then they printed this instead.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know how true that is, but that's the rumor I heard.
We're gonna reduce it by 1. We're gonna give it infinite scaling, but you'll take infinite damage. You're not gonna die by that point because you've drawn your whole deck. Also, it can't be blown up. It needs to be exiled or bounced.
Yeah, and you can't lose
and
the
you
game.
get protection.
Yeah, you can't lose the game for a turn.
Yeah, they made it playable. They made it very, very
they
playable.
did make it playable.
I don't know, man. I like powerful cards. I really think they're cool, and I think you can definitely tell where a game is at design wise when you look at like the most powerful cards and the most like the least powerful cards that are like still seeing play. The One Ring being in every deck, I think, is my biggest issue.
Just it being so playable.
If you are playing a deck, you are playing the One Ring.
There is no restriction to that card.
No, there's
no penalty.
Even if you were playing ad nauseum, the deck that uses its life as a resource the most, you are still playing the One Ring because it is second ad nos.
Yeah. Yep.
It kind of is. It just protects your ad nos.
Yeah, except it doesn't tax your life total, you know?
Exactly. And I think that's where my issue is. Like I like giving powerful things to. You have to have trade-off, I think, and there's no trade-off with that card.
It's not true. It's slow.
I guess.
You only see one card for 4 mana the turn you play it. So
you know what? You're right.
If it survives another turn, then...
But during that time, you can't be fucked with.
I guess.
Like, I guess you still lose to Thoracle, but like you just drew your blue card for your Force of Will.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like there's no deck building cost for One Ring. I guess where my issue is. Whereas like Oko, for example, there is a deck building requirement of like this is a card that you are going to want to play and have it. You want the game to go a turn or two longer when you play Oko in your deck, and it's definitely a meta call kind of card where like you have to look at the format and go, yeah, I think being able to slowly pick apart people's boards either by elking things or by exchanging control. You are going to start to you're going to start getting your fingers everywhere in the game. And I think that's cool. I think that's super duper interesting. And I look at the One Ring and I go, yep, it's just the best card in the game. Not the best card in the game, but it's really, really fucking good.
I don't know. It might just be the best card in the game. Like just single card. I think it's probably the best card in the game right now.
And I think
across the board.
I think it's able to reach that status only because it's colorless, because you can play it in literally every deck. I think if it were any color pip, multicolor or singular, I don't think we would be having this conversation.
I don't know if I go that far. I feel like if it were a blue pip, I feel like everyone would be like, okay, this card makes sense for what it's trying to do.
Yeah.
And some of the faster decks might not be able to play it. Or if it were like a green pip, people would go like, this card doesn't seem all that strong. It's like fine, I guess. But then you throw it into like either like white, I think again people will be like, this card's kind of neutral on, like it's fine, I guess.
Yeah, probably fights for the same slot as like Smothering Tithe, maybe. Yeah, edges out Smothering Tithe.
And then in like red and black decks, if you were to stick that card be insane. People like, why is it? We'd still be having the same talk, right? Like, why is this card? Why do we give these decks another boost to their win the game card engine stuff?
Do you think that those decks need that, or you think it's like warranted at all?
No, people still play ad nauseum, and it's nowhere close to as good as it once was, but it's still a hell of a card. Like, there's no reason that those red-black turbo decks need another boost.
Okay.
If anything, I think that realistically, like, we need to see more. So we talked in a previous episode, and we said like the word of the year is asymmetry or whatever, and that's kind of like held true.
I would say so. Yeah, I would say absolutely true.
I think going forwards, if they want to start to like balance the game more, like but still keep printing these like not so powerful cards, I think we need to see less asymmetry. We see like keep printing like really strong stacks effects, but make them hit everyone. So there's a deck building cost, right? It's a restriction. So even something like Deafening Silence, where you can build your deck so it's less affected by it.
I think Deafening Silence walks that line tremendously well.
I think that's such a good example of the power level we want to see for cards. Like, it's a very easy card to cast. It slows down the game, exactly like those types of decks want to. It demands an answer at some point, but it's still and it affects you less, but it's still going to affect the decks that play it to some extent at some points. Like, and it's a deck building cost, because if you don't want it to affect you, you have to play more creature spells. Or at the very least, less non-creature spells.
Or beyond like a game plan that facilitates like your one non-creature being good.
Yeah. I think another like really good example of an application that's a bit more niche, but is also super duper strong, would be like Humility or Dress Down. Those cards
those cards are insane.
Dress Down is like obviously a step up from Humility because it sacks itself, so you can play around it for yourself. But it is a deck building cost where like you can't use it to clear all of the stacks pieces unless you're on a non-creature like combo. So basically breach.
Mhm.
I think that humility is another really good example. Like this is a crazy like next level stacks piece, but it's hard to get into play. You don't want to play a lot of creatures that have like powerful effects, which is some of the best generic cards right now, because if you do, you're getting hosed as soon as you get humility into play. So there's no real reason to just throw humility in a white deck as a stacks piece. So you have to build around it, sort of like create a game plan. Like things like that, I think, are really strong. Like, and they walk the line really well. I think along the lines of like Curse Totem, Torpor Orb, those cards are all really strong, very powerful, but they have deck building costs that are associated with them. Like you don't want to play a lot of ETBs. You can still play some because the card won't always be there, but you don't want to play a ton. You don't want to make that your game plan. You don't want to make activating creature abilities your game plan if you're throwing Curse Totem in there. Just think we need to see more things that hose people's own strategies if they're trying to do it. Or like, actually, what would be really cool to see in the next coming year or two would be cards that have really strong beneficial effects, but once they're in play, they have like a static or something that imposes an additional restriction on you, the player. So like think Iron Golem. I don't know if people are familiar with that card, but it's like a 3 mana. It's like a 3 mana 2/2 or 3/3 colorless artifact creature, and it says you can't cast creature spells.
Oh yeah, this guy.
Yeah, so it's like, what is it, 2 mana, 3 mana?
Oh wait, hold on. You said Iron Golem?
I think it's called Iron Golem, or maybe it's Steel Golem.
I'm gonna try Steel Golem because I'm not seeing anything for Steel.
It's a metal thing. I can see the little.
Oh yeah.
Dude
with the head. Steel Golem. It's got a weird face. 3 mana, 3/4 artifact creature golem. You can't cast creature spells.
Yeah, like that card was really strong when it was printed, and especially in limited, right? Like you just resolve your tutor, use your bomb. Yeah, above average body for a below average cost. But there's a restriction on it. I think it'd be really cool to see cards like that get printed again that were like actually good in the format. I'm thinking things along the lines of another card with a similar idea that doesn't see any play right now, and then another similar card that saw a lot of play was Meditation from Modern Horizons 2. I think it's called Meditation. No, it's not called Meditation. That's an instant that draws you 4 cards. It's like, I don't know, it's something about being like mindful or whatever. But anyways, it's blue, white, and 1 for an enchantment. It says whenever you play a spell, draw a card, but you can only play 1 spell per turn.
Oh yeah, that card. No, I'm familiar with that card. Yeah.
It's not Meditation. That's an instant from like, I don't know, Stronghold or something. But I think it's from Tempest actually. But yeah. So whatever this card is, it refuels your hand, so you're never card neutral on a spell because it's a cast trigger, but you can only play 1 spell per turn. And obviously that's an example of a spell that's a little like it's too weak on that level. Like the boon of the effect is not strong enough. But it's that kind of thing where it's like this style of card could be really cool. Another great example of a card that they actually did a fantastic job with, really balanced for 60 card formats and still very, very powerful, is Fire's Invention.
I love Fire's Invention. That card's sick.
Took Modern apart, not Modern, took
Standard apart.
Standard apart, Pioneer. It was really powerful, and I think it was Legacy for a while.
Yep, because your targets for Fires are just insane.
Yeah, some sort of like Turns deck or something, right? And it's, for those who want to know, it's a 4 mana enchantment, once again, so it's a permanent. 1 red and 3, says you can only cast 2 spells per turn, but you don't have to spend any mana to cast any spell, so long as the card's CMC is less than or equal to the number of lands you control.
Crucially, you can only cast spells during your turn, so you are sorcery locked.
Yeah, so you are sorcery locked. So like there are significant significant restrictions imposed. I still think I said that wrong. Dude, I'm tired. This weekend was long.
Significant restrictions imposed.
There we go. But I think that those restrictions are more than made up for by the fact that you don't have to cast your spells for any amount of mana.
Payoff is insane.
You just put them on the stack, and if someone has an answer, which in 60 card formats is harder, then they resolve, and you can be like, oh yeah, Fire's on 4, pass them, play another spell for 4 as my second spell, so immediately you get some sort of payoff, and then you pass it around, and then on your next turn, you go like 5 for a Kenrith, or 5 for a Planeswalker, cast another spell for free, activate an ability for mana. Like the the decks that played it were wild. They did tend to be Planeswalker decks and things along those lines, but they're insane. I would love to see a card in Commander that had some style of effect like that. Like, this card is so powerful, but once it's in play, and before it's in play, I can play the game like normal. But once it's in play, I have to play from like some other weird axis, sort of like Humility does to decks.
Yeah, I hear that, I go, that's really cool. I like that idea a lot. And then I start thinking about power creep. And I'm like, I feel like we're always going to ask the question, like, where do we go from here? Because, like, I think back to, like, when Cedh was printed. And that broke everything, sort of, in a way. Where, like, the quality of creatures up to that point was defined pre-Cedh. Like, Cedh was just one of the best creatures you could be playing at any given point.
4 mana for like a 4/5.
4 mana, 4/5, costs 3 colors, has trample, ETB, you lose 3, I gain 3.
Yep.
And
wild card.
Absolutely bonkers card. Like, and you hear that card now and you go, yeah, like, it's a standard whatever. But like, if you did not play against Abzan standard with Cedh, you will not understand how far behind you get put when you see the Rhino hit the battlefield. It fixes everything. If you are playing against the aggro matchup, you have a ginormous body and you've reset the life total. You've swung it back in your favor. If you were
6 points.
6 points. 6-point life swing. If you were playing mid-range, you were facing opposing Cedh Rhinos. You had to have plans to beat the Cedh Rhino. If you were on control, that was your game plan. You were going to land a Cedh Rhino and you were going to play control from that point on. And that Cedh Rhino is going to carry you to victory. And you needed 5 turns with the Cedh Rhino unblocked to get you there.
Not even, right?
Less because you were playing mana dukes. Because you were ramping that Cedh Rhino around on turn 3.
Yeah, and it's
it's
ETB,
nuts.
So they put them to 17. It's swinging, so theoretically they would have 1 life after 4 swings, but not really, because it's like modern or whatever. They're going to take a damage from a fetch or a shock or something at some point.
Yeah,
so it's 3 swings.
Pain lands and fetch lands. So they were... You put them on a 4-turn clock. Like, every single box that you could think of for that card was insane. And I remember having the thought of, like, creatures can't get more insane. And then they did. And then we started putting ward on things that don't need ward. And then we started putting indestructible and artifacts that don't need indestructible. Like, we keep putting these, like, random-ass things on cards that I just go, this doesn't... Like, if this text wasn't... There's no reason for this text to be here. It's just insane. But at the same time, I have fun playing these cards, is the thing. And that's where, like, the angel and the demon on my shoulder start differing with each other. And it's just like, no, I want balanced card design, but also I crave crazy. I want insane gameplay. I want every card to be the fucking best thing in the world.
Well, I think...
But I think having the best thing in the world should always have some sort of, like, detrimental cost in either, like, political sway, game state, or, like, deck building restriction. And that's why Commander's so cool, is you impose a deck building restriction on yourself, sort of. Yeah,
or counterplay too, right? Like, there's very clear cut, like, cards that answer this card, even though it's so strong. I mean, you could say like counterspell, blah blah blah, but like, and yes, to some extent, but also it's for cards that are as strong and as permanent as the One Ring, things that answer that game plan directly. So it's like, I think we can all agree that we would want to see cards that like counter that to some degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, and this is a trap, but so like Spirit of the Labyrinth, like if that card were a little more playable, would be a really good answer to the One Ring, right? So like more decks should probably play it, right?
Yeah, probably either that or like
perfect. Whole Breacher should be legal. You have fallen into my trap.
I kind of saw that one coming because I was just going to go. I was going to respond with, well, like, yeah, Notion Thief effects are like probably like a decent consideration depending on what you're trying to do. Which yeah, Whole Breacher, Whole Breacher
should be legal. You fall into my trap. I have it on record.
I've never been like against the Whole Breacher ban. I think I was like initially when I was first like dipping my toe into CDH, but especially after playing with Bowmasters, like. I think it's a little bit necessary to have it it does the counterplay thing. It does the punish generic good thing that everyone is doing. Like, the best thing to do in Magic the Gathering is draw cards. And we are playing a game where, like, you have to draw cards. Like, that is the bare minimum requirement for a deck to be good, is you need to be capable of drawing cards.
Yes, I agree.
When every deck is trying to slam as many value engines and counter spells and ramp and compact win conditions into a deck, card drawing is the best thing you do. Resolving value engines is the best thing you can do.
Yes, and
on average, you will have faster hands that are going to beat out the value engine. However, over a lengthy period of time, just resolving value engines is going to be better for you.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because, like, you'll hear people bitch and whine about, Bowmasters is ruining the format, blah 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 blah. But it doesn't ruin the format. It imposes some restriction on your Ristic study. Like, it provides clear and concise counterplay to decks that want to do this whole draw card thing. And I would argue it actually doesn't even do a very efficient job of answering those decks.
Not really.
I think that Bowmasters is a really interesting card, and it's like very powerful. Don't get me wrong, but I truly don't think that it's anywhere close to as format wrecking as certain personalities out there would have you think. Like, just because it kills like a Kinnan after someone draws one card and you flash it in response doesn't mean like that's a bad thing. It's healthy. And I do think that if more cards like Hull Breacher that were super efficient and answered card draw and things like that became like truly answered card draw, not just, I'm going to deal you 10 damage or whatever over the course of 4 turns. Like, they truly came in and they answered card draw by stopping it in a way that multiple decks wanted to play these as much as they wanted to play the big draw spells like Ad Nauseam and the One Ring. It causes that like hesitation, that pause, that I have to actually think about playing this game that's complex, as opposed to just, see Ad Nauseam, cast Ad Nauseam. See big spell, cast big spell.
Yeah, exactly.
It gives you that momentary, maybe I shouldn't tap the One Ring this turn because somebody has like blue 2.
Someone just tutored a Hull Breacher. Like, there's a known Hull Breacher in hand. I cannot do this.
Yeah, I'm just not going to do this now. But it's also, that provides a really interesting dynamic too, right? Because now that player knows that they have to hold up 3 mana at all times.
We've begun the game of cat and mouse.
Yeah, like, it makes the game more complex, more intricate, more thoughtful. Like, it requires people to actually dedicate like intelligence to the game, as opposed to just, I'm gonna run it out there, and if it doesn't resolve, great, I'll try and run out the next thing when I see the next thing. And like assessing windows helps with that. But I think that just like forcing players to consider their game actions because they could actually lose if they take a beneficial game action at the wrong time is, I think it's great. So important. That's one of the reasons like Laboratory Maniac was such a great card. And even though Thoracle has like counterplay around it now, like, it's just a more balanced card in general. Labman, that is. Just because like you can win the game, sure, but I have to make sure I take that game action at the right time, because if I don't, I'm gonna lose instead. And Thoracle doesn't push players in that same direction. Yeah, well, not even because of that. Like, sure, you can be scared and like don't do it at the right or the wrong time, but it forces you to do it right then. Like, it forces you to act now and act out of nowhere, which, like, it's cool, I guess, but I don't think it provides I do not think that it provides as healthy a dynamic of gameplay in general. Do I think it needs to be banned? No. I think the card has enough answers, there's enough counterplay, people are aware of it enough now that it's fine. But just from like a card design standpoint and like from a metagame standpoint, I think that Labman, and most players, I believe, should probably agree on this point, is that Labman is a better designed, better balanced Magic card.
Absolutely. Like, Double Blue, I think, is the most balanced part on that card.
On Thoracle?
On Thoracle, yeah, sorry. Yeah, on Thoracle, like, that is the most balanced part of the card. If that card was blue 1, I would shoot myself. That's a joke. That's a joke.
But it's wild.
It's insane. No, I 100% agree, because I also think the thing with the fear that I mentioned is, like, anytime you go to try and draw a card, you are dead to any removal spell. That is your counterplay.
Yep.
Like, whereas Thoracle, like, you need specific cards that are, like, we have enough flexible and generic answers enough, mainly, like, Endurance, Turn the Earth, Kenrith Activate from the command zone, or like I'm going to cast a spell into your S% like there are enough tools to catch an unsuspecting Thoracle player off guard enough, and that becomes like a bit of a skill check in some regards, but it plays
It's still
itself.
really
It
strong.
just does itself. Like that's
Yeah.
all. No, I agree. Honestly, Bowmaster saying it was going to control the draw is I think a very funny thing to say in hindsight, because all Bowmasters has done is killed off Dork decks or like severely punished them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times it's like, oh, you've drawn 14 cards off that Ristic Study, but I'm not shooting you, I'm shooting the stack pieces so I can try to win.
Mm-hmm.
And then like sometimes it like more frequently than not, like the stack pieces are gone, I've drawn 14 cards with my Ristic Study, now I'm
gonna win. Yeah, exactly.
And so people just play the card wrong a lot. And I think that's just a big part of it. Like, so going back to like this whole idea of what does balanced gameplay look like?
Yeah, well,
right?
I guess. Yeah, what does it look like? I guess.
So in 1v1, I think a really good example of balanced gameplay is like attacking for lethal in the late game. Like if someone has an out that they can get, like that they can play from their hand, or they see something that outs them that you don't see, like you're now, in theory, right? It's like in a balanced matchup, you're now tapped out and you die on the crackback. Like it is the same thing for Commander. Like when I attempt to win, if I get thwarted, I should get punished for flubbing my attempt. I should get punished because the game is now going to go longer, which means people are going to sit there more. And I'm going to have to be the one who I attempted to end it. I'm going to get killed off because of it. Labman, great example. I'm going to swing for lethal. Someone deletes my Labman. I have now died on the crackback as a comparison, right? And I think it's the same thing. Like if I go and cast a game-winning spell and I flub my win, I should get punished for that. Again, not just like set back, but I should get actively punished.
Worked against.
Yes, like it doesn't necessarily have to delete you in the same way that a Labman flub does, but something where it's like, if the One Ring had text along the lines of like, if it gets, you can't say leave the battlefield because bouncing's a thing, but it could be like, has it destructible, and it's like if the One Ring would go to a graveyard from play, like you lose 10 life or something like that.
Or like
that
life equal to like 2 times the amount of like counters.
Yeah, or like you take damage equal to 2 times the number of burden counters on it. Something like that would be a very fair balancing condition, because then it also incentivizes players to say, hey, this card is omnipresent in our meta. Let's go ahead and play cards that allow us to punish players using the One Ring by sending it to the graveyard. So things like Shadow Spear get more playable, just because they answer other cards. And we'll see this a lot in other formats where it's like, this card is not very good, but now it directly answers this new card that was printed in a way that other cards don't. And now it's a staple sideboard card, because I know I'm going to see this other card in matchups. And I think that's something that, and obviously like cards in general are printed for 60 card formats, even though they more and more seem like they're printed for Commander.
Yeah.
But if they're going to be more and more printed for Commander as opposed to 60 card formats, we need the balancing for it. We need those balancing things for a 4-player format. Something like the One Ring, sure, it'd be pretty close to unplayable in a 1v1 format if it had a text like double damage on the burden counters.
Absolutely. I don't think this is with this proposed change is still with indestructible on the card, correct?
Yeah, it would still be like, I mean, it would still be played, but it would be significantly less good because people will tech in Shadow Spear to get off their Urza Saga, so they can do that and then shatter it and do you like 6 damage just for killing your One Ring or something like that. But then it introduces even more micro gameplay decisions where, okay, well now I'm just gonna bounce my One Ring in response to your removal spell.
Yeah, so you start considering tapping the One Ring.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're looking for.
Yes,
we're looking for the consideration to activate the One Ring because we know that there is something that can bite us.
Yes, and that's all I'm asking for as far as card design goes. Is I want win the game cards to have like some sort of like, at least I should think about what happens if this play goes bad on them.
In that regard, is Thoracle good then?
I don't think it's good, but it's still fine, right?
I guess good's the bad way to put it. Does that fit your criteria?
I think it does, right? You whiff the trigger where someone puts cards into your library and you do get punished. Like you have no cards in your library because you've exiled them, and now you have to pass, and you're probably going to die in the next 2 turns or whatever. Like it does meet that. It's still that's why I'm saying it doesn't need to get banned. It's still a relatively okay card. But I do still think that Lab Man is more balanced because the condition of having no cards in your library is so easy to meet. And especially because Thoracle doesn't necessarily have to set you to 0 cards in the library.
Nope.
It's very possible to make it back. Like you have 2 cards in library, you get to draw next, and you play a Phantasmal Image or some clone effect on your Thoracle, and you get to do it again. You can flicker your Thoracle.
Or like if you get Endurance, like you don't have a lot of your cards, but you have like some of your cards.
You might have something in the graveyard.
Like depending on how late it is, like you might have stuff that are still in your graveyard that's being shuffled back in that makes you like at least somewhat relevant to play for like a draw or something.
Yeah, and I think so. Like the card is still it's obviously more powerful than Lab Man.
Definitely push.
And I think that cards that say "win the game" on them, like directly, like the literal text "you win the game," should punish players for flubbing a lot more than like a combo or a card that draws you a lot of cards and then can assemble a combo. Like the One Ring doesn't need to kill you if it leaves play. It just needs to punish you based upon how many cards you've seen.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned it a while ago on the show, but I floated the idea that I think that there are enough buttons and knobs of cards that already exist in the format to police things that the format can do the self-regulation thing, where cards in favor, cards answer, cards that are in favor, counterplay starts, and then we loop back around again. But I still don't think card draw is answered enough. And that's like the only like mechanic that I think isn't like hurt enough. I guess you can argue lands, but like if you're trying to fight lands, you're not doing something relevant anyway. Like the only relevant land to hit is Guy's Freedom. Like, that's it. And even then, like you can just run Assassin's Trophy, and you're answering that. Beseiju answers it as well.
Beseiju answers it, yeah.
So like even that, like there are mechanisms by which that you can fight those cards, except for card draw. And
yeah,
I still think I want Hullbreacher banned, or if I don't, I will take Hullbreacher being banned, but I need another good playable card that says you cannot draw cards.
Yeah, something truly like Spirit of the Labyrinth. Something that like has higher than 1 toughness, so Bowmaster ETB doesn't just delete it, so Bowmaster doesn't just turn it off. Like your Bowmaster that you're playing now says, oh, well, I can now still draw more cards. Something, it can even be symmetrical. Something like truly like Spirit of the Labyrinth, but it should also be reactive, like a card that has flash that does it, or maybe it's an enchantment that's very low cost, so it's harder to kill, except for like Beseiju or something like that. Maybe we even see something really unique in the form of like a Staxy Planeswalker emblem. Like it's like
Narset exists.
Yeah, but like an emblem, right? Wouldn't it be? It'd be really unique to see like a 3 or 4 mana Planeswalker that can emblem immediately after it comes into play, and it just says like for the rest of the game, players can only draw 2 cards per turn. I think it'd be really interesting to see like a 3 or 4 mana Planeswalker that had an emblem that it could do right away. That just said like players cannot draw more than 2 cards per turn. It could be like a downtick or something to balance it well. It's like comes in with 4 loyalty, downtick for 3, create a Planeswalker emblem that says all players, including you, cannot draw more than 2 cards per turn. Or something like that.
I mean, shit, we can just do the Gideon thing where it's a 0 to emblem, but you have to maintain the Gideon.
Yeah, that'd be great. So like get like another, and obviously this is gonna be harder because Planeswalkers have lost their sparks for the most part, so we're gonna be seeing a lot less.
So we're not getting Planeswalkers, right?
Yeah, well, I think we might get some every now and again because there are still Planeswalkers in the lore, but we're gonna see a lot fewer cards. It's gonna be back to like the M12, like the core set frequency of Planeswalkers, where it's like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 per set, right? And hopefully they'll actually be strong. So like it'd be really, like I said, it'd be great to see like a 4 mana, like I don't know, like I think Narset's still alive, but something like her, right? You just or maybe it's a creature, since we don't have those, but it's a creature with like an ability where you have to meet a condition every turn, but it's got like those like old clauses where it's like contamination, every upkeep sacrifice, or you sacrifice this creature or something. So maybe it's like a black and a blue.
I do love
creature.
those like maintenance costs on cards a lot.
Yeah, and it's a really good way to balance powerful effects.
And it gives payoff for decks that are just naturally like upkeep sack a creature. Like every token deck in the world loves those cards because it's just free. It's just free. It's a boost in a strategy that can take advantage of it. If you're overflowing with a resource, this is another outlet that you can use that resource for. I love those style effects. I think it's so good. It's so good.
What if, since we're restricting card draw, it's like a creature where it's like our maintenance cost doesn't have to be cumulative, but our upkeep maintenance cost is like just exile the top card of your library, or like the random card from your graveyard or something like that.
I think I like exile the top card of your library.
Yeah, like maybe you get super punished for staxing everyone else out, but also like at the same time you're hosing everyone else's like game plans so significantly, and in the matchups where it doesn't matter, don't cast the card.
Just don't.
Don't cast the card.
That's right. It'll be blue or white, so it pitches to either Force of Will or Solitude.
Perfect. I'm okay with that. Yeah,
no, I'm also fine with it. How do you fit like Silence and Grand Abolisher into the conversation? Because I think that's if we're on the asymmetry wanting to move back to symmetry plan, I think you have to talk about them, right?
I think Silence is probably fine, right? It's a one shot effect. Gets answered by basically every single counterspell in the game. You can activate abilities into it. You can channel effects into it. And Grand Abolisher's gotten significantly less powerful with all of the recent channel effects that have been printed, right? Like, it's obviously still pretty game winning.
It's still an insane card.
Yeah, it's obviously still pretty game winning when it hits the battlefield. Like, especially if someone gets on tap with it, they're almost certainly going to win. But at the same time, it's like not quite the end of the world that it was maybe like 8 months ago, before like Touch the Spirit Realm and Otawara and all of those cards got printed.
Kamigawa was last year, my guy.
Wow.
We're like 18 months into channels.
God.
Yeah, I know, it's insane. No, because it was the start of last year, not the start of this year. But no,
wow.
Okay. No, I can agree with that. Because I wasn't playing much pre Kamigawa in terms of CDH, so I can't really speak to like pre-Silence, pre-Grand Abolisher, like pre-Ranger Captain before all of those channel effects. But like having played a lot of games where those cards, like even if we still have the outs, even if we still have the way to like interact with them, I like living in the world where you can't hide behind Grand Abolisher, Ranger Captain, Silence. Because you are still alive. You still have to consider the Rhystic Study. You still have to consider the Mystic Remora, the Talion, the random value engine out there. That like there are still going to be outs for you, and I like that. I think I like that.
I also really like the one shot effect dynamic with like Captain and Silence. I think those are really healthy.
I think those are really good because you can use them defensively to protect yourself, or you can use them aggressively to stop other people, or like force them into a window that they did not want to make. That they did not want to work under, like upkeep crack your Ranger Captain. You gotta fire something now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah,
because I was initially thinking like, okay, if we're fighting the asymmetry allegations, like these cards are asymmetrical by nature, by design. Like, yeah, I think the prevalence and the playability matters a lot for the channel stuff. When fighting those specifically, because touch cleans up so much, and Boseiju and Otawara hit literally anything you would care about, so you're just covered for whatever they do. And if you really want to go crazy, like I think that's the only like aspect it doesn't hit is on the stack. That's about it. You interact with the board really well when GA hits battlefield, but you only need to interact with the board if GA specifically is on the battlefield. Obviously, if Silence is resolved, a Ranger Captain, like it's a different circumstance. But I think I'm fine with that. I think I am fine with that. Do you think anything like is underrepresented?
Underrepresented how?
Strategy, commander, idea, playstyle.
Oof, not that I can come to off the top of my head. I don't think so. I think there's a pretty good mix of stuff out there right now. Got a lot of, I guess if there was something, it'd be like there doesn't seem like there's a lot of hard stacks going around, but also I
think that's just a meta thing.
I was gonna say I think it's actually it's like a tournament thing.
Yeah,
like there are certain like with the timers and stuff, like slower decks just aren't as viable, which is fine. I think that I do think there's a point where games can go too slow, and
Mm-hmm.
ending every game in a draw doesn't deserve a conversion to top whatever.
No,
Um,
no.
I don't think other than that I don't think there's like a terrible underrepresentation of anything right now. The meta seems pretty healthy, pretty diverse. Obviously, there are still some like top contenders compared to like other stuff. Where it's
I mean,
like
that's always
Timnakrom's
going
all
to be
over
the
the
case,
place
though.
still, Tivit's all over the place still, Kinnon's all over the place still. But like aside from those things, like and just very obvious cards that would come to exist to hate on those strategies, I don't think there's anything that's like strategy wise or deck wise that's underrepresented.
Yeah, I can't, like, apart from just, like, beat you over the head, but even then, like, Winota exists for
Like
that
aggro,
reason.
yeah, Winota exists.
Yeah, like, Winota exists,
aggro-wise.
Yuriko exists, so, like, those decks exist. I don't necessarily think, like...
There are definitely beatdown strategies right now.
Yeah, there are definitely beatdown strategies that exist. And plus with the shift that I think we've observed, like, having a beatdown plan is a relevant thing to have. Like, I think that is definitely a strong consideration for a deck, is like how well can you pivot into and how good is your beatdown. So like in those longer games, you are going to need to change into, I'm going to beat you up now. I don't care about these cards in my hand. These cards in my hand don't exist. My creatures in the battlefield are big though, and you are running out of life. Anything on your mind that you've been like wanting to like just talk about?
No, I think I'm pretty good right now. It's mostly just been like considerations of what cards do I need to be playing in order to answer what other people are doing at this point. And like I said, Manglehorn, great card. Oko
Good card.
seems like a really good card right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's any other interesting tech pieces I've seen in the past like 2 or 3 weeks. Like seeing something and like, oh wow, that's actually like really cool card.
Oh, I found a tech card the other day that I want to
yeah?
talk about. Let me see if I can pull it back up again. Hold on. There it is. Yeah. So I found this. I was bored one night and I'm like, it's been a minute since I've checked out what old EDH Rec has for me. So I was thinking about what you said about like finding black market connections. Like, when's the last time I went dumpster diving? And I came out with something, I think.
What'd you find?
I found Gilwing, Casting Director. 1 green-white for a 2/3 legendary creature human bard. When itself or another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one. Create a royal role token, create a sorcerer role token, or create a monster role token. The relevant one is royal. It gets +1/+1 and ward 1. So on ETB, it protects itself, and on every other creature ETB, it also sort of protects itself.
Interesting. So wait, so when did the role tokens attach? Or what
On ETB.
To? And they attach to the thing that just ETB'd?
They attach to the thing that just ETB'd.
Okay, so you can't stack multiple role tokens on.
No, and then mechanically,
one.
Yeah, mechanically, if you do by another means put another role token on a creature that already has a role, you choose which one you want to keep.
Oh, so you can't be like royal ×3 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
and the other ones are like they're like fine. I think sorcerer is like on attack, scry 1 and the creature gets +1/+1, and then monster is trample and +1/+1, which are like fine enough, I guess. But I don't know. I think it's interesting. I've been thinking it over a lot because I think having the fact that it's able to protect itself is really cool. But it also forces the most favorable opportunity for Kiki-Jiki players, which is you are responding to me with an untapped Kiki-Jiki so I can play on top of you. And also, like, it just pumps your dorks, pumps your guys, makes your beatdown plan stronger. I think it's cool. I think it's an interesting idea. I don't know if I'll put it in a deck. I might, but I think it's really cool.
Interesting card, though.
Yeah. No, I was like, what do these role tokens do? I did not pay attention to this. And I read through, I'm like, oh, this gives me a good one. Well, okay, this card's interesting then. This card might be relevant.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. I don't know if I would play it in anything short of like some sort of green-white deck. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'd play it in a Bant deck depending on the strategy, but
yeah. I don't think I don't know if it makes the cut for Baby Pod, but I think it's super interesting.
I don't know if Ward 1 is all that good. I know that it's like the
I
difference
think Ward
between 1
2
and
is
2 on those.
Point.
Yeah, Ward 2 is pretty good, and then Ward 3 is pretty
backward. It may as well say hexproof.
It honestly should. But
yeah, I think that's the limit. Is like Ward 1's cool, but like is Fear of Resistance on your either free or 1-mana counterspell really good, you know?
Yeah.
That's the question it poses. And I don't think so. I don't think it's good enough. But it's
Might be
cool.
worth testing.
It's definitely worth testing. Probably not right now, because I'm testing other stuff. So I don't think I'm gonna fit in this testing batch, but it is something that I've been keeping on the back burner. Just, you know, let it simmer, let it cook. That's
nice.
Yeah, that's I think the only like other tech card that I found recently. I found like a couple, or I rediscovered and recategorized a couple of like classics. What am I considering board? There were a couple lands that I'm like, oh, this is an interesting idea. Inventor's Fair, I kind of forgot was a card, but I think I'm so color hungry that I don't think I can afford to run the colorless land. I looked at Haven Ghoul Laboratory because I thought that's funny.
What is that card?
So it's a legendary land, taps for colorless. This is also from the Stranger Things Secret Lair. It's the what's the research place from Stranger Things called?
Oh, the Hawkins National
Laboratory. The Hawkins National Laboratory. Yeah, that's the
okay.
one.
I know. I know what this card does. It's interesting.
Yeah, 4 tap investigate. That's not the relevant card text. The relevant card text on it is it says at the beginning of your end step, if you sacrifice 3 or more clues this turn, transform, and it transforms into a land that says when this land transforms into its backside, Haven Gold Mystery, because I'm reading the in-universe version, return target creature card from your grave to the battlefield, and when, as a separate ability, when the creature put onto the battlefield with Haven Gold Mystery leaves, transform it so it flips back, and you can pay 1, pay a life to add a black. And I'm like, that's cool. I don't think I'm ever sacrificing 3 clues in a turn and not winning.
I don't know, you might if it's pay 6 to reanimate something.
I guess, and that's like the other thing. And I'm like, that's interesting. That's cool. That was mainly it. I read Street Urchin again, because it's 1 sacrifice an artifact to ping something if you have a commander out. I'm like, that's interesting. I was just looking for ways to just like juice the clues, and I re-saw Deadly Dispute. I'm like, that card's cool. I don't know if like, because it's the same mana to crack a clue versus Deadly Dispute, and I don't know if like a cantrip is worth it. I don't think it is, but it's value. It's sick value.
It is sick value.
Yeah, well, that's mostly been it for like the tech and the spice department. Been low on the spice lately. Nothing that's been really grabbing me, apart from the new Legolas split second spell. That card's insane.
We don't need to talk more.
We don't need to talk about
the
that
Rings
spell.
Cards this episode.
We don't need to talk about that card. That card's insane. All right, well, bit of a more laid back, different episode this week. Didn't really have much of a plan. Just wanted to chat with Atlas. It's been a minute since we just chatted about Magic. Want to thank everybody for listening. We'll catch you next time.